Hi, welcome to Jesus RX. It's the best pharmacy I've ever worked at. My name is Eva Popek, and I was a pharmacist for over 23 years. I loved helping people with medication management. There seemed to be a medication for every need. But was there? What about a person's deepest need? Can that be found at the pharmacy? Welcome back to the Jesus RX Prescription for Life podcast. These next 4 episodes, we will be covering the prescription for wisdom. What is wisdom? How wise are you? Who do you know that is very wise? Just think about that person for a moment, and I want you to take a minute to think about why you think they're wise, or maybe why you think yourself so wise. Some people think people are wise that come up with inventions, that's wisdom. I won't use the word accumulated a lot of money. They have earned that money. But then how they have invested or spent that, other people may think is wise or unwise. Is it maybe because someone has a lot of degrees from an institution of higher learning, and their degrees are in just various areas, not just one degree, but many, so that makes them wise? Maybe you know somebody's IQ. Does IQ make somebody wise? Many times it's applying what you know, applied wisdom. I am going to regress for a moment, but I hope you see where I'm going to be going with this. My husband and I went to go check on a dolly for the car because, again, the wisest decision we thought is going to be towing the car behind our RV, so when we get to the destination for several months, we'll have a car to drive. We won't have to rent one. That would be a bit expensive. Or borrow friends because we don't like borrowing vehicles. But, again, a wise financial decision would be to get the dolly and, have our car. We do have a prescription for finance in the Jesus RX Prescription for Life workbook, and you can get that at Amazon.com or see where it's available at my website, evapopek.com. So if you're having some problems with your finances and you want to do things God's way, you can check that out. So we went there to check this dolly, and I stood there by the fence of this house, and it was a chain link, and I could hear at the neighbors a pigeon or a dove. I didn't know quite what, because it was a little chicken coop, enclosed, and I stood there listening. And then the man that was selling the dolly came over, younger gentleman, and I said, "Oh, I'm just listening because that doesn't sound like chickens." And he said, "Oh, no. This is not to say a lot about my neighbor, but he's a really nice guy. He used to work for Michael Jackson, and he saved this pigeon. And when he saved it, he nursed it back to health and everything, and it can fly. It could leave, but it doesn't leave him. It stays in the chicken coop. It likes to be there. And when he comes out to feed the chickens and everything, that thing just comes right out, and it gets right on his shoulder, and it stays with him. He'll walk around, and he says, it's kind of strange, but yeah, it won't go. It won't leave." I said, "Oh, yeah, that is." I said, "Okay, I thought I had heard something other than chickens." And there were a few chickens I would watch as they would come out. I joke, but I don't joke. It's part of my therapy with fear of chickens. So I'm just watching the chickens, and there weren't tiny ones, but they just were doing their thing, coming in and out, and I never saw the pigeon. Again, as far as my phobia of chickens, I've not tried to collect eggs ever. And I've not gone in a coop. Maybe that will be the real test someday. I don't know. I don't think that's important in my life, but I just don't like the fact that I kind of am afraid of chickens. Let's go back to the way this brain works. I leave there and I think, I live in Pahrump, Nevada. Some of you know about Pahrump, okay? And it's not a hustle bustle place by any means, and I just pray people don't try to turn it into a Las Vegas. And I'm thinking, well, people that come here, some retire. And now that I'm substituting, there are quite a few young adults here and children. I had no clue there were that many. I'm thinking, what other famous people live here or may have retired here just to get away from everything? And as I looked things up, I was aware of someone that is not famous for what, called good things. And it was Heidi Fleiss. She was known as the madam to the movie stars. Okay, so you could read about her or whatever. And I knew she had lived here, and it actually said something about the little tiny airport out here. I don't know if she owns that for sure. So again, I don't know if any of this is fact. And the other thing, though, I do believe is true because she did love birds. She had a bunch of birds. And she was from California, and with the California wildfires or just the fires that destroyed all those homes, she had said if people had those exotic birds or birds, she would keep them till they could get a place. That was really nice. That's the deal with her. I was like, okay, I wasn't too interested, in her so much. So I was like, who else? Is there anybody else? I came across this racer, and again, famous where? In the racing world. But I did meet him because he's actually a high school student. I don't remember his name. And he has been in several races. But at the high school, when we were talking about speeding and breaking the law, someone pointed out he speeds all the time. I'm like, really? And he goes, what's my job? I go, what do you mean? So I found out he races, and I did ask him if he was ever in any accidents. I'm like, were you ever in a wreck? He's like, no. I said, oh, good, good. I guess he's someone to watch and just a real humble kid. I thought he was very nice. The person that I stumbled across, or I say stumbled, it was a lot of people know about him. You probably know, or anybody that knows anything about Apple probably knows this in the history of Apple. And his name is Ronald G. Wayne. So he was a co-founder of Apple. And I read online that he's now 90. On Apple's 40th anniversary, the BBC did an interview with Mr. Wayne, and you can find that at bbc.com. And at the time, he was 81, okay? Back in the day of Apple, when it first began, he was given 10% of the company, and 12 days later, from making up all the documents for the company, he had his name removed, and he was given $800. And a year later, he got $1,500 to forfeit any potential future claims against Apple. And Mr. Wayne was 41 at the time, and Steve Jobs had asked him to come with him and talk to Steve Wozniak. And Steve Jobs met Mr. Wayne at Atari. They worked at Atari. And if you know anything about Mr. Wayne, apparently he wanted to start a company with slot machines, but it had failed. So he had that back in his mind, this company had failed. And then he worked at Atari, and he was able to talk Mr. Wozniak into joining them. And Wozniak and Jobs got 45% each of the company, and that's why Mr. Wayne got the 10%. He sounds just so humble to me. Some people will think that he made a big mistake, that he wasn't very wise in not just keeping his name on the documents and being part of Apple. And I'm going to say, I don't know if he knows Jesus. I don't know any of that. But when I heard the article on BBC online, I saw a very humble home. And I don't want to be the stalker, but I really may go and find out where he lives and get a little interview, hopefully, with him, or just talk to him. He's 90. I'm going to leave this that before I tell you what the article said. Steve Jobs died at 56. Mr. Wayne is still alive at 90 at the time that I checked. But this is what his words were, and he spoke in the interview. I would have wound up heading a very large documentation department at the back of the building, shuffling papers for the next 20 years of my life. That was not the future that I saw for myself. If money was the only thing that I wanted, there are many ways I could have done that. But it was much more important to do what appealed to me. My advice to young people is always this. Find something you enjoy doing so much that you'd be willing to do it for nothing, and you'll never work a day in your life. And I know I've heard that before. And I think it's wise not to take a job just for the money. But I do understand there's times where people will take jobs because it is a large amount of money for just a certain time. They set goals. They'll save to get help for when they really want to get the business going. And again, like I said, we have a prescription for finance. And again, if there's a job that you feel the Lord is leading you out of, that is causing strife in your life and unrest, and you really need to come out of it. If you talked about that to people and you're just unhappy and it's a daily grind for you to go to work, and the grind is not good and you're not happy. Why are you doing that? Again, are you going against what God has for you? I stepped away from pharmacy, and that's in my other podcasts and the reasons why, and I heard different things. It didn't matter. Just like Mr. Wayne, he wanted to do what he loved. I think that too many people lack wisdom. I did. I do sometimes. And in our prescription for doubt, I talk about that, how wisdom will go along. The more wisdom you have, the less you will be doubting what God has for you. What should we do about it if we lack wisdom? Well, we need to ask for it. God is so good that he just tells us that. Ask for wisdom. In the book of Proverbs, you'll find many verses relating to wisdom. Here's a few things about wisdom. 1, fools despise it. 2, it gives life. 3, the world's wisdom is foolishness. 4, you can ask God for it. 5, it gives understanding. 6, brings security. 7, brings honor. 8, brings promotion. 9, keeps you from sexual immorality. And 10, it brings happiness. It says in the Word of God, happy is a man, I'll say, or woman, who finds wisdom, and the man or woman who gets understanding. What is wisdom worth? Her proceeds are better than the profits of silver, and her gain more than fine gold. It's more precious than rubies, and all things desired cannot compare. Wisdom, a tree of life to those who take hold of her, and happy are those who retain her. So we see godly wisdom function symbolically to replace what was lost in the Garden of Eden. Jesus Christ fulfilled wisdom's promise. What is the beginning of wisdom? How do we know we have it? The beginning of wisdom is to fear the Lord. We have a prescription for fear in the Jesus Rx Prescription for Life workbook. Again, that's available at Amazon. You can find it and start working ahead 30 days on your prescription. Or you can go to evapopek.com and see where it's available. And the prescription is chapter 6. And it covers how we're to fear, what we're to fear, and what a healthy fear is. Now, me being afraid of chickens, I don't know. Does it matter? Well, I shouldn't be. The fear of the Lord, why? It's about respect. It's not, oh, he's going to zap me, he's going to hurt me, he's going to get me because I didn't do this or do that. No. It's respecting, and I do talk about this in the prescription for fear. It's about, I'm going to give the example, okay, I'll just tell you. The big ocean. I'm not the best swimmer. Again, I'm not the best human being on this earth either. Let's put it that way. If I go in that ocean, I respect the ocean. I don't go too far. Sometimes I don't even get in, depending on how rough the waves are. But I respect that ocean. It's big and it's powerful, the waves and the winds. But I know also who calms the waves and the winds in my life, because I'm not the best human being. It's the Lord. I respect him because he's created me. He's created the heavens and the earth. His presence, his power. He's a God of all gods. I respect that. Why? Because he is who he is, and I'm not God. I respect it. That's how I fear the Lord. That's the beginning of wisdom, to be respectful towards God. He has created, like I said, the heavens and the earth. He created you. You're awesome. He's created his awesomeness. What he's created is you and me. But I want to tell you what the wisdom is like that comes from heaven. It is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. Would you like that kind of wisdom? I do. And I think about situations I'm in many times, and I think about my actions. And I have to ask, are they pure? Are they peace-loving? Am I being considerate? Am I submissive? Full of mercy and good fruit? Impartial and sincere? And you know what? Sometimes my actions don't display heavenly wisdom. I think I'm right in my own eyes many times. I then have to remember, whoa, what about my health? I want to be healthy. Mind, body, spirit, right? I want to obtain health, and part of that is staying away from evil and fearing the Lord. So in Psalm 3, 7, and 8, it sums it up very well, and I'm going to end this podcast with that. So here it is. Try to remember this. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. It will be health to your flesh and strength to your bones. I want to thank you so much for joining in today. Because I know sometimes allowing God to change our minds and hearts in difficult situations isn't always easy, but it will allow us to sometimes think differently about a situation, and that in turn may help us to act differently towards that situation in a positive way. Remember, our mission here is to lead you, first and foremost, to the great physician for all of life's circumstances through his word. We do not deny that physical medication plays a part while we're on this earth. I know that I want positive changes, and I know you do too. I do want to just state that anything you've heard from me or any of my guests is not intended to replace any of the medical advice that you're receiving. Always check with your doctor before stopping any medication or any changes. Now, for sure, you can add spiritual medication to any regimen that you're on. And just don't be surprised if that spiritual medication heals and changes you in ways you never ever imagined. So because all things are possible with God. So if you could be so kind as to leave a review about anything that may have helped you today, or if you want to share it with someone that you're just thinking so much about and loving that you know it could help them, please let them know about this podcast. I would really appreciate it. Because I know the more of this medicine that we can dispense and get out into this world, the better off we'll all be. So until next time, stay healthy and stay in God's Word.